Do you remember Die Hard? What about Murder House Flip? Or Chrissy's Court? How about Architecture? No? Okay, that's not surprising. It's been 4 years since Quibi launched in the early days of the pandemic, a $1.8 billion streaming service founded by media titan Jeffrey Katzenberg and former eBay and HP CEO Meg Whitman, and funded by some of the world's biggest media companies, tech companies, and banks. It failed spectacularly within 6 months, after its subscriber growth fell well short of its targets, and ultimately they had to sell its content library for a paltry $100 million. Quibi is now considered a failed novelty, like HD DVD or the HQ Trivia app, and there's been a lot of videos already made about its downfall. Jeffrey and Meg have tried to imply in interviews that this failure was due in large part to the pandemic and might have succeeded otherwise. It's impossible to say whether this is true, but Quibi faced other issues, such as the quality of its content, that cast this into doubt. There were two core features that made Quibi interesting though. Its TV shows were divided into quick bites no longer than 10 minutes, and the ability to watch all content in landscape or portrait while still making full use of the screen. Quibi was addressing key problems with these features. Our busy, distracted lives mean that 45, even 25-minute episodes feel like too big of a commitment, and holding phones the way we hold them most of the time is much more comfortable than doing so sideways. TikTok's story has been the polar opposite to Quibi's, achieving massive growth in the years since the start of the pandemic and perfecting the short-form video format. But as TikTok tries to expand into long-form content and the lucrative ad revenue that comes with it, could these features be crucial in its ability to overcome huge competition in the form of YouTube? Quibi launched in April 2020, just as COVID lockdowns outside of China had begun to take effect. Quibi's unique selling point was that it was meant to be primarily used on mobile devices, and had a couple of main features that were meant to facilitate this. Firstly, all content could be viewed in landscape and portrait without losing screen real estate to black bars, a feature called Turnstile. And secondly, episodes were divided into 10-minute or less quick bites, hence Quibi. The company was originally founded as New TV in 2018 by Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman. Jeffrey was chairman of Disney Studios from 1984 to 1994, where he took the company from last in the box office to number one during his first 3 years there, doing so via adult-oriented comedies such as Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Dead Poets Society, and Pretty Woman, and some of Disney's most successful animations, such as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Little Mermaid, and Beauty and the Beast. Ultimately, he sued Disney for breach of contract and settled out of court for $250 million, before going on to co-found DreamWorks, which also had huge hits like Shrek, Chicken Run, and Shrek 2. Meg Whitman's career isn't quite as exciting as Jeffrey's, but she still has an impressive resume, becoming CEO of eBay in 1998, which she saw transform from 30 employees and $4 million in revenue to 15,000 employees and $8 billion in revenue over 10 years. She became CEO of Hewlett-Packard in 2011, where her success was much more limited. She was named the most underachieving CEO in 2013, and had to write off $8.8 billion off the valuation of their acquisition of British company Autonomy, later testifying in 2019 to having not carried out proper calculations of the write-down. To launch Quibi, Meg and Jeffrey used their plethora of connections to raise $1 billion. This included big names such as the Walt Disney Company, 21st Century Fox, NBC Universal, Sony Pictures, Warner Media, Viacom, Lionsgate, MGM, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, and Alibaba Group. By late 2019, a year before launch, they'd sold out their entire first year of advertising inventory for a cool $150 million. It's hard to think of much else they could have done to lay the groundwork for a successful launch. The app officially launched on April 6, 2020 and had a successful first week, hitting 300,000 downloads on launch day and 1.7 million for the whole week. Unfortunately, things quickly took a turn, with the app falling out of the list of the 50 most downloaded free iPhone apps in the United States the next week, being ranked 125th by May. In the 6 months following launch, 8,500 episodes were released, spanning 175 shows. This wasn't enough for people to subscribe though, and on October 31st, after just over 6 months, Quibi announced they were shutting down, before officially shutting down on December 1st. By its final weeks, Quibi had accumulated 500,000 subscribers, well short of the 7 million target it was aiming for after its first year. In a post-mortem interview with Deadline, Meg explained, "We tried a lot of different things over the summer, whether it was paymentless free trial, 90-day free trial, 14-day free trial. Ultimately, none of it really changed the fundamental answer, that we needed more capital, and we needed more capital relatively soon. So, why did Quibi fail so spectacularly?" Why Quibi failed, or more specifically, why it didn't scale fast enough, depends on who you ask. Jeffrey and Meg stopped just short of blaming it entirely on the pandemic, maybe aware that this would look like a refusal to take accountability, but pointed heavily to the fact that people weren't out and about, which is when it was intended to be used. In their interview with Deadline, Jeff said, "Well, everything about Quibi was designed to be on the go, in between moments, at a moment in time when no one was on the go, and their in between moments were on the couch. And suddenly we were competing for people's attention in a way that we never conceived of or thought of." This problem was exacerbated by a lack of AirPlay and Chromecast functionality at the time of launch, which they blamed on the prioritization of engineering tasks. Then there was the quality of content on Quibi, which The Verge puts first in its list of 11 reasons why Quibi crashed and burned in less than a year, describing it as the most obvious reason, but arguably the biggest. It's hard to disagree with this, as despite some interesting concepts and big budgets, much of the content was mediocre at best or simply unappealing. It was arguably a risky move to go all out on original programming from the outset. Netflix didn't start producing original content until 6 years after it first launched its streaming service. MrBeast's management team even expressed interest in producing content to Quibi directly, but were declined in what seems to be a huge mistake in hindsight. Many people's personal finances also took a hit in the early days of the pandemic, making it difficult to fit yet another streaming service into their budget. Finally, a factor that wasn't appreciated at the time was TikTok, which began its meteoric growth during this period, transitioning from that dancing app to an everything app. But while TikTok soared as Quibi crashed and burned, 4 years later are there treasures for TikTok in Quibi's wreckage. To state the obvious, TikTok's growth in the past 4 years has been explosive. From 2020 to 2024, TikTok grew its global user base by 435 million, an increase of 93.4%, and the average daily time spent on the app is set to hit 58.4 minutes in 2024. ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, reported $16 billion in revenue last year, closing in on Meta, a much more established player in the space. The backlash sparked by a recent bill in Congress to ban TikTok is a testament to its popularity amongst a large swathe of the American public. TikTok built its success off short-form video, and made it work in a way that no other platform had done previously, so much so that Meta cloned the feature in the form of Instagram Reels, which has experienced significant growth in the past year, with watch time increasing by a massive 25% year-on-year in Q4 2023. This has put pressure on TikTok to grow in other ways, such as TikTok Shop, live streaming, and long-form video, evidenced by its recent testing of 15-minute videos. Long-form video allows creators to dive deeper into niches, and generally has higher conversion rates for ads. Despite TikTok's stratospheric growth and talk of catching up with the more established players, it's easy to forget how huge YouTube is. As of March 2024, TikTok has an estimated 1 billion monthly active users, versus YouTube's 2.5 billion, although it's worth mentioning that these figures aren't published by the platforms themselves, and are instead estimates from Data Reportal, made in partnership with trusted sources such as SEMrush, SimilarWeb, and Statista. A big factor in this large difference is that TikTok is banned in India, with YouTube Shorts hoovering up many of these potential users, and India making up 25% of all uploads to the service. And despite the creator fund and its variants, TikTok is competing with YouTube's well-established and comparatively generous revenue-sharing program, which splits ad revenue 45-55 between YouTube and the creator. TikTok has shown that it's dedicated to this pursuit though, phasing out their creator fund in favour of the Creativity Program Beta, which only pays out for videos over 1 minute, even claiming to potentially earn over 20 times the amount previously offered by the creator fund. Anecdotally, I've seen a lot more longer form videos in my feed, often clocking in between 3 and 5 minutes, especially ones that are more educational in nature. It's also worth noting the importance of 2x speed in this too, which makes long form content a lot easier to digest for many users, and which TikTok seems to encourage through the use of a tap and hold shortcut. But is it really long form content if it takes half as long to watch? TikTok faces 2 challenges though, and these come down to the mobile format. Part of the nature of watching content on mobile phones is that users are liable to be interrupted at any time, whether that be distractions from other apps or from the context in which they're watching it. You might get a message that you need to reply to, or the bus you're on might be approaching your stop. For longer videos where it's not possible to finish them before addressing the distraction, it can be awkward to find your place in the video before the distraction, and apps will often reset when too much time is spent away from them. This was exactly the problem Quibi aimed to address, the ability to easily jump in and out of long-form content by breaking them up into quick bites. For many TikTok creators, the solution to this has been to break their longer videos up into chunks, normally putting them in a playlist. This actually works quite well, and is the format that the viral Who the Fuck Did I Marry series took, which was extremely successful. Risa Tisa broke up her story into over 50 parts, each close to the 10-minute mark, and it personally had me hooked for all 8 hours, comparable to a full season of a show with 45-minute episodes. I do want to emphasise that Risa Tisa has exceptional storytelling abilities, and it remains to be seen whether we'll see another series as captivating as hers. However, it's difficult not to see Who the Fuck Did I Marry as proof that the format can work, but perhaps the biggest kick in the teeth to Jeff and Meg must be seeing TV and film broken up into chunks or quick bites on TikTok, even if the format is so unofficial and rough around the edges. These are hugely popular, and you might have encountered them yourself. Shows like Young Sheldon, The Good Doctor, The Bear, Grey's Anatomy, you name it. These normally aren't uploaded by the copyright holders themselves, but by random profiles dedicated to this style of content. Without diving too deep into this rabbit hole, this is a weird phenomenon where, despite clearly violating copyright, they just seem to get away with it. This may just be because the copyright holders aren't actively reporting it, and TikTok doesn't seem to have an automated detection system like YouTube. Sometimes, these clips are low quality footage of somebody filming a TV, and sometimes the original audio won't even be included, instead replaced with a text-to-speech summary that often gets details wrong.
What more do you want from me? Anna blames herself for being blind and marrying Bud, but now she's just worried about her best friend Lisa's health. The doctor said...
And yet, people still watch in their millions. Why? In its exploration of the topic, Days found that there were a few reasons why this type of content appeals to users. Habiba, 27, told them that she struggles to get into new films because of anxiety, and so having the option of watching a few clips lowers that barrier for entry. Reality TV is a popular genre for this style of content because of its ease of entry midway through, with Ed, 25, describing watching any trash TV that falls into his lap. Ed and Habiba also agree that they enjoy the social element of this type of content, being able to look at the comments and immediately see what people think, unlike normal streaming TV. There's also the ability to skip through the boring parts and only watch the best bits, something that they felt was necessary, given the filler storylines. Despite the popularity of this format on TikTok, whether that be original content like Who the Fuck Did I Marry or stolen copyrighted content, TikTok hasn't quite perfected its implementation of it. Videos can be organised into playlists, but creators have a bad habit of not doing this, and even then it's not easy to browse playlists on a user's profile. The For You page has a tendency to show random parts from a series of clips, and if the clip hasn't been put in a playlist, it's difficult to find the first video in the series, even with the Just Watch shortcut that appears on the creator's profile. TikTok's inclination to remove random videos for trivial reasons also means that you're liable to start a series only to find that part is missing, rendering it unwatchable. This kind of quick bites content is exactly what Quibi provided, only the vast majority of it on TikTok seems to be copyright infringing, a problem that TikTok will inevitably need to address at some point. This might take the form of licensing agreements with rights holders, encouraging creators to create original content in this style, or perhaps least likely, creating its own original content. The second challenge TikTok's facing in its pivot towards long-form content is getting its users to, well, pivot. Part of the reason for Portrait's effectiveness in the short-form video space is convenience of both filming and viewing, not needing to rotate your phone, basically. But landscape is generally preferred by everyone for long-form content, as it makes more effective use of our field of vision, which is roughly 200 degrees wide and 135 degrees high for someone with 2 eyes. There's a reason TVs and cinema screens are wider than they are tall. While not as rapid fire as Vine was, TikTok owes a large part of its success to being as frictionless as possible, and having to turn your phone to make full use of the available screen space and rotate it again to scroll through the feed as normal is contrary to that. But to get people watching landscape content, TikTok needs to get its users to make it. We know TikTok is serious about this, as they're incentivizing 1+ minute landscape videos by boosting their views within the first 72 hours of posting, and have started showing a full screen button for TikToks shot horizontally. TikTok doesn't release stats on the percentage of videos that are shot in landscape, so it's difficult to make an assessment of how effective these incentives have been so far, but this is especially important if TikTok wants to grow its share of TV time. YouTube dominates this space, making up the largest proportion of streaming video on TVs, even higher than Netflix, while TikTok doesn't even rank in Nielsen's data. This is a valuable area to dominate, with YouTube able to easily sell ads in a context where viewers are used to longer ads, and that's not to mention Google's extremely lucrative programmatic ad network. This is undoubtedly something that TikTok has in its sights, having launched its first TV apps back in November 2021. TikTok doesn't release stats on usage of its TV apps, but it felt basic when I tried it, especially considering how much attention is given to its mobile app. Scrolling the For You page on a TV felt awkward, and discovering content outside the feed wasn't easy. Part of the problem is a lack of long-form landscape content to discover, the kind of content that's YouTube's bread and butter. And this is where Quibi's portrait and landscape filming could provide a resolution. When filming their ill-fated shows for Quibi, filmmakers used two main methods, either shooting in 8K and cropping a vertical version to go with the original, or doing two separate shoots. This meant that users could easily rotate their phone at any point and still make full use of the screen real estate through turnstile technology. TikTok relies on user-made content, so it's not viable to have users film all content twice. However, shooting in 8K and having a second, cropped, portrait version is. 8K isn't widely available on smartphones just yet, but there are plenty of options for those who want it. It's also worth mentioning that creators would need to be considerate of what's cropped out of portrait versions, but part of TikTok's original success is attributable to its video editor, which has lowered the bar for creating well-produced, entertaining content through its excellent design. So I have little doubt that TikTok can make this filming format work for creators, through on-screen guidelines for example. If TikTok can get creators to film in this way, this will unlock the floodgates of content. TikTok and Quibi's trajectories in the past 4 years have been polar opposites. Quibi crashed and burned in 6 months, while TikTok has seen incredible success. Quibi's failure was a source of endless mockery. There's few things that we enjoy more than a story of extremely wealthy people failing spectacularly, especially when the main victims were large corporations. Don't worry about poor Meg and Jeffrey though, they turned out fine. Jeffrey was named as one of the national co-chairs of Joe Biden's 2024 campaign for re-election as president, and Meg is serving as the United States ambassador to Kenya. Quibi's content library was ultimately sold to Roku, living out the rest of its days as ad fodder on the awfully named The Roku Channel. But while Musical.ly has had explosive success in its new life as TikTok, it's facing possibly its biggest challenge yet, as it seeks to escape the limitations of short-form video and capture the lucrative revenue opportunity of long-form video. YouTube is the £800 gorilla in this space, and TikTok is going to need to develop a steady stream of high-quality content if it wants to compete, especially if it wants a share of the biggest screen in people's homes too. YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels' strong growth last year also means that TikTok is having to attack and defend at the same time, avoiding ceding territory while capturing more. If TikTok is going to get users to create and watch long-form content, then it's going to need to do what it's always done best, meeting users where they are. TikTok has an excellent algorithm and app design, but there's valuable learnings it can take from the concept of Quibi to achieve this, whether that be its quick bites format or its emphasis on making content for both orientations. TikTok has extremely passionate users. This was more evident than ever in their response to the prospect of a ban. But the online video space is extremely competitive, and TikTok could lose its advantage as quickly as it gained it. TikTok can look unstoppable at times, but it's dependent on a constant stream of innovation to maintain its position and user happiness. And that might just mean digging up the $1.8 billion grave of Quibi. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. There's been quite a few videos made already on the downfall of Quibi, so I wanted to do something a bit different and see what they might have gotten right. I'd love to hear your thoughts though, so please drop a comment down below, as well as a like and a subscription if you want to see more. I release a new video every couple of weeks. I got quite a few new subscriptions from my last video, and it means a lot that you signed up for more videos from me, so thank you if you're one of those people. Until next time, see ya!